I am here with Ben Koinings. That's definitely how to say your last name, right?
Yeah, nah.
No? Ah!
Good try.
I
I'm
tried.
used to it. I'm used to it. Yeah, yeah.
It's Konings? It's not Konings.
Just say it how you want. Like Koinings is probably how most people would say it.
How do you say it?
Yeah, just say it Koinings. Like it's Dutch, right? So
Let's
maybe if you're gonna say it with
let's say it properly. Let's say it properly.
Oh, man,
Let's say it properly, Ben.
the thing is like I'm 50% Dutch, but I've never really properly learned the language, and I obviously didn't grow up there, so like I don't really know, much of the sort of the proper accent of things, but. Yeah, Koinings or however you want to say
Koinings.
it.
Okay.
Like the German version with would be like König,
König.
which basically means king, and it's got the umlaut over the O and no S on the end in the German version. But you go through Europe and there's a few different versions of it. It's like king, kind of, king's a pretty normal surname.
That is
in English.
It's also just like worldwide because they have a lot in Chinese as well.
Speaking of which, I saw that Charles didn't do too well.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, he's got cancer.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, that's completely off topic.
Oh, damn. That's all right. We can get into that if you want. Got cancer. Yep. All right. So, people listening, Ben and I have known each other for a little while. We used to work together, and he is now a mortgage broker officially. But he also has done a bunch of other things. He's also worked as a physio and was once a keen crypto investor. Still an investor, but he's definitely the man of the... He's very financially literate, let's put it that way.
Yeah, oh, thanks for the compliment. It's, I've got a very broad selection of interests, I suppose. Growing up, I found myself, I was interested in lots of different things. Had a hard time choosing what to do after I left school. And, so sort of had a bit of a tour of the economy, I kind of call it now. Started off in healthcare and then... moved into, did a bit of sales in there as well, and then marketing, obviously, where we met.
Yep.
And and now working in finance. So it's kind of been a bit all over the show. And then I also had a quite a keen interest in music when I was younger too. So
you play guitar and stuff. It's cool.
It's the world's a diverse place, and there's lots of interesting stuff. So
that's cool. Yeah. Get involved in it all. Why should people trust you as a mortgage broker? Because let's be real, you guys are dirty. Nah, not you all of you, but some of it,
Trust's an interesting one, right? I think banking and finance is one of those, I guess, things where people do have a bit of a healthy level of skepticism about it. And you see, if it's, something about a loan shark in the news, or you see the bank's made another record profit this year, and you kind of, I guess, get thrown into the mix with all that kind of stuff. And I think, one of the reasons that we kind of talk about when we're advertising our services is the fact that we're an independent third party. Essentially, we're not employed directly by any one bank, and part of our sort of our code of conduct and our duty of care, they call it, is to our clients, right? So we're kind of in the middle there, basically working a little bit as an advocate as well on your behalf, to try and get you the best deal. And I think sometimes there can be some challenges to your kind of morality, or like a classic one recently, if you've paying attention to the news, the Commerce Commission came out and made a very sort of quite judgmental statement. They had a press release and everything about it, about how they thought that mortgage brokers weren't independent enough, and that they were
like all under banks.
They were basically, because we're paid by the banks when we complete a loan. That there was a conflict of interest there. Which is there's some truthful elements to that, but overall it was very misguided, and they didn't really know exactly what we do or how we did, and they kind of just made this sort of came to this conclusion from a sort of afar, which wasn't particularly fair, and quite a few people sort of advisors actually went to them and wrote to them and met with them, and in the end they basically issued a formal apology and said, sorry, we got this wrong.
What? People took accountability?
Yeah, amazing, right? Like they actually said,
that happens in today's society.
Yeah. So, so why should you trust a mortgage broker? I mean, all those reasons. I think at the end of the day, it's like anything. There's going to be some of us out there who've probably, played in the grey a bit too much, or put their own interests above the interests of their clients, which. There's obviously, let me give you a good example, right? So, I've got a fellow at the moment, and I'm doing an application for him. He's refinancing his investment property, and we've now put the application into 4 different banks. So we got the first one.
Okay.
We did the first 2. Initially, I said, let's do these 2. I'm not going to name names, but these 2 because they've got the best deals going at the moment. So cool. And then we did the 3rd one because we thought there would be some advantages to doing that. And then we had approvals from the 2 out of the 3 and said, great, here are your options. And then another bank came out and advertised a new promotion. And he said, hey, I like the look of this one. Can we take it over here now? And I'm sitting there going, oh man, this is like more work. Now I have to go through and, do another couple of hours of paperwork to get it all packaged up and sent over there. But you do it. So we did it, and that got submitted today, and it's kind of okay. Like it's one of those cases where it's like, well, it's more work for me, but acting in the best interest of your client, kind of okay. Let's just suck it up and do it type thing. So, whereas someone else might have gone, well, they might have potentially misrepresented it, or gone like, that's not a good deal for you, or made up some kind of reason why they couldn't do it, and not done it. And at the end of the day, the client probably still would have, had an okay deal, but it might not have been the best deal or exactly what they wanted. So, yeah.
Doing the research into these, just like it'd be interesting if you could break it down. So when you have a client come to you, you're going for loans for these different banks. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for with the loans?
Yeah. So an analogy I quite like with a home loan is. If you think of a chair, right, and a chair's got 4 legs generally, unless it's a weird chair or something, but generally it's got 4 legs, and that's a little bit like a home loan, right? So one of the legs would be your equity or your deposit, so how much skin you've got in the game. If you're going to buy a property that's say $500,000, generally the bank's going to require you to have 20% deposit, or sometimes less these days. And so that's your skin in the game. So how much? Yeah. So that would be one leg holding up the application. Another leg holding up the application would be how you're going to pay for it. Or, a mortgage term is typically 25 or 30 years, sometimes shorter. So how are you going to make the repayments of the loan as you go along? So how does your income look? How much do you earn? What's your salary?
Just on the income part and the salary, just because I've known a few people who do like contracting and a variety of different sort of work.
Yep.
Applying for a home loan is more difficult, right? Because it's like inconsistency of income. So how much of that is a factor?
Yeah, it can be. It presents another challenge, right? Because let's say you're paid a salary or PAYE. Every week, every couple of weeks, every month, you get a pay slip. All you need to give me is here's 3 pay slips. And that's generally all the bank asks for. And they could look at it very clearly and go, this is how much you're earning. This is how much tax you're paying. This is how much kiwi saver you pay. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. We know you're trusted. As long as you're employed in a full-time or a permanent contract, fine. That's it. There's generally not too many more questions asked. If you're self-employed or you're then there's a lot more to it, right? Because business is a bit different from being paid as an employee, and it goes up and down, and you have good days and good months and bad months, and so generally it's easiest if you've got two full years of trading history and you're showing a profit. So lots of people get a bit sort of mixed up between like revenue and profit. So sometimes they talk about, oh yeah, I'm earning 200K. You kind of get the numbers and go, well, you've got 200K worth of revenue, but by the time you take off all your expenses and everything, you've actually only got 100K, or you've only got, so it is harder. It can be more challenging, and that's one of the areas where I believe have a really strong advantage, because each of the banks has their own policy around how they assess self-employed income. To sort of keep it simple without maybe going into too much detail, some of the banks allow for add-backs. We call them add-backs, right? So if let's say you're a self-employed podcaster, and this is your home office, right? On your profit and loss statement, if your accountant's any good, there's probably a line there that says home office, and he's deducted things like a percentage of your power bill and your phone line and your rent.
I really should actually sign this up as a business,
right? and basically, when the bank's assessing your income, they will take that line and they can add that back on to the net profit. Now, only some of the banks do that, and some of them don't. So if you've happened to, let's say you're self-employed and you happen to apply to one of the banks that didn't allow for that add back, they would be assessing a lesser amount of income on your application, which means that they potentially wouldn't approve as high a limit for your loan.
Right. Interesting. So what was the other pillar? You had two. So you got two more.
So you got deposit. You've got your income. You've got your character, so credit history. Which, so, and this is where a lot of people kind of get a little bit tripped up around.
Like credit cards we're talking about, like debt.
Yeah, like a credit check. Credit check. Yeah, credit history. So
is that including debt, other debt, or is it?
Yeah, so it's your debt history.
Debt history,
right?
As the whole.
So let's say you had a credit card or whatever, and you never paid it, and it was way overdrawn, and and you do a credit check, and it comes back and it's horrible, or maybe you've got phone bills that have never been paid, or you took a car loan out and never got behind on the payments and all that kind of stuff. That'd all be against you.
Okay, and then the last one.
Heck, it's actually just flown out of my mind, believe it or not.
That's all good. We can.
Yeah, let's come back to it now.
Let's come back to it. Yeah. All good. So I guess, like, for a lot of people, this is the skepticism of these banks, of people in property, because of especially with people with property, not just talking about mortgage brokers. It's about commission. A lot of the time, that's what the focus is, and what, from what I understand, is the big focus of people, especially like in even like real estate or whatever it may be. So, kind of going into a lot of places, like I'm not buying a house at the moment. I mean, far out. I'm not a millionaire, but I think like a lot of people get a bit like, as soon as they go in, and one of the things for me is like when I deal with people in property, I just don't believe anything they say. Because I just feel like I just want commission. I will say anything to just get my commission.
Yep.
How can you find like I guess what's my question from this? It's like reliable, doing research, finding reliable, I don't know, people in the industry, or like how can we find more or be around more legitimate? I don't know.
I think what you say, like I agree with it, and I personally believe that there should be more transparency of information in the kind of, I guess, the industry, so to speak. How do you find trustworthy information? I mean, real estate agents, if we're just using the example, are quite heavily regulated, and I think the answer, I think, that has sort of tried to be applied is that to regulate things, make people comply. You have to do this or you'll lose your license. So for a real estate agent, for example, if there's something about the property that they don't disclose, they can lose their license, right? If they've misrepresented it, or let's say there was a good one is the recent flooding.
Yes. That's been a massive one, but that's also like landlords and like renting has been that whole debacle as well. I know a few people have had difficulties over that.
Yeah,
being lied to about property in terms of the condition of what it actually is, and
I think a lot of it comes down to education, right? Mm-hmm. I've kind of been around and looked at a few properties and kind of things over the years, and after a while you figure out,
you can pick up
yeah
things.
So like one of the things that's really common when someone's buying a house, and what we typically recommend is to get a builder's inspection. you know,
I heard it's good to get a builder's report, like get that the same thing, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's different levels you can get that on, right? If you've got a mate who's a builder, and you just want someone to look through it and give you your professional opinion, that's cool. That might be, them coming through, might take them half an hour to look through the property type thing. On another level, you can go out and you can employ like a professional building inspector to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, pay them, I don't know, it might be $1,000.
Yeah.
Hopefully not that much. I don't know. I actually haven't ordered one recently, so I don't know.
Have you done it before?
Yeah.
Did you find it really beneficial?
Yeah. It's good from the point of view that they go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and if they miss something, it's on them, and so they point out every last little bit. So it is good from that point of view, because there's stuff that you might not realize that could be an issue in the future that they have a duty to point out to you.
One thing I'm interested about a lot of properties popping out at the moment, and living in Auckland, is we're seeing all the subdivides, right? You might know where I'm going with this, because the amount of subdivides I've been in, or even I know some friends of mine have bought.
Yep.
My gosh, the problems in these townhouses. We think of the ones that join together. All kinds of different things, from leaks to things not probably, no, it's not furnished, but like fully gone over. Like there's still work to be finished, because during COVID, it's like, let's rush to get these subdivides up. And
yeah.
There's a lot of these stories I've found about, a lot of stories I've heard and I've read about with these townhouses. And I guess like from my point of view, it's like, we should. People if this is a good first home buy, that's probably like most likely what people are going to be buying these days. I mean, probably gone are the days of, I'm renting where I am, but getting a nice house like this is probably a bit out of the question. So, but I guess for people buying, first house and getting those townhouses, like, it just kind of sucks, because again, like we're talking about that trust thing, like that kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, I think there needs to be like some context there, and I don't. Again, like conversation we often have, someone's aiming to buy a new house. Like our recommendation generally is still get a building inspection, right? And they might go, it's brand new, like it's going to be fine, right? It's like, well, not necessarily.
No.
There are aspects that maybe the builder's missed. Every property has to go, has to be consented by the council, and has to have inspections along the way, and then it has to get its CCC. It's code compliance certificate at the end of it to say, yes, this building is built to the standard that we expect from a modern house. There's different quality of builds, and I think like people's expectations, buying your first home in Auckland, like you're not going to get your dream home forever, home type thing initially for a lot of people, unless you're, I don't know, win lotto, or maybe you've, done really well for yourself. I don't know. Most of the time you're going to be buying, something on the, on the entry level, which might be small. It might be a townhouse. Maybe it's in a suburb you don't particularly like. Maybe it's run down. Maybe there's issues with it that, you just plan to fix up type thing. So I think, New Zealand's had a patchy history as well with building quality. And I think there's a number of factors that go into that. The fact that we're a small island country at the bottom of the Pacific Island, and shipping stuff down here is really expensive, and we've essentially got a monopoly, or maybe duopoly in some cases, of a lot of the building supplies. That doesn't really help, right? So, like, to give you an example, and then of course we're losing skilled labour as well. So my little brother is actually a builder, and he lives on the Gold Coast now. And he essentially, sort of a few years out from his apprenticeship, doing all right. But he went over to Oz and realised that he could get paid more.
Oh, of course,
probably, I was like, good 40% more.
The trades in Australia, if you work there,
property, and the thing with property in Australia versus New Zealand is that if you look at the cost of a house, more of it, they're able to pay their labour better because the materials are cheaper. So they've got
more
larger country, more purchasing power. So the materials are cheaper, and then they can afford to pay the tradies better. And that kind of dynamic, whereas down here the materials are more expensive. So therefore, in order to keep a lid on the price, often the trades and things get hard done by.
Yeah, I definitely do feel that here, especially obviously talking about COVID a million times, but yes, even during that period it went crazy, as we all know. Lost my train of thought too. Where was I going? It was something else I kind of wanted to also touch on was like, is it with a first home property or more of to look for?
Yeah.
What if you're a first home buyer? What are your tips to look for if you're walking into a property and you're like, you've seen it online, saw some photos? What are the things to look for? Is like, ooh, like maybe like go in there, see if this is right.
One thing we did when we bought our first home.
Just get a bit closer here, Ben.
We looked at. Oh, sorry. When we bought our first home, we looked at quite a few. We'd looked for over a year before we even bought anything, right? So we looked at quite a lot of stuff. But I think what we realized over time is that, and this is nothing against real estate agents, right? They're doing their job to the best of their ability. But when you look at a house, it's very easy to get wowed by the temporary stuff that isn't necessarily even included in the sale. So one of the ways that they do that is they put some really nice furniture in it and stage it really nicely. They might put nice paintings on the wall and a nice rug on the floor and all that kind of stuff. So probably one of my tips is that if you're looking for a home, look past that. Don't look at the nice sofa. Look at the condition of the walls. Look at the look at the stuff that isn't included in the sale, and then look beyond what the photos show you. Because everyone can look at the photos and go, oh, that looks kind of nice, but what's it like in real life? What's it like when you're living there? Look in the ceiling. Look under if it's on piles or whatever. Look under the floor, and ask yourself, the structure of this house, is it up to scratch? Because you can easily paint the walls. Might be a bit inconvenient. You can renovate bathrooms and kitchens, but the structural stuff, that's kind of I guess feeds into the building inspection side of things as well. I
just got another question from that. Okay, you've bought the house, you found it. Okay, so you've met whatever the deposit you've put on it, but how much? Here's the next part. How much money do you need for the next part, which is the renovations and the fixer-ups? Because that's something else I don't think people think about from what I've heard people buying property.
There's cost of ownership, right? And so, when you're renting, you pay your bond or whatever, and then you pay your rent every week, and your power bill and your internet, whatever, and that's kind of it, right? And then if there's a hole in the wall or something breaks, then, hey, Mr. Landlord, this is broken, fix it, please, dishwasher blew up, if you have a dishwasher, our dishwasher blew up last week, which is not great. I have to find a new one. That kind of stuff. And when you own the property, there's a lot of costs involved in that. So you have to pay rates, in Auckland, and rates are going up at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Some areas of the country, property rates are already, if you go down, for example, around Hutt City and stuff, $5,000 a year already. In Auckland, you might find that's about $3,000 a year, depending on the value of the property. To just put that on a monthly figure, that's maybe somewhere between $250 to $300 a month. And then you've got your obviously insurance on the property. You've got to maintain it. If it needs painting, if anything needs fixing, mowing the lawns, doing the gardening, if there's any kind of landscape and stuff to do. So there's some costs of ownership there, which I think a lot of people look past.
Especially in the beginning, I'm talking about, once you get in the house.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
And then, if you want to do any renovations, and this is kind of where it gets a bit tricky because, most people, and particularly if you're buying with less than 20% deposit, doing renovations is hard, right? Getting the money to do the renovations, because typically you've poured most of your savings and your kiwi saver and everything in to buy the house in the first place. So you don't actually have a lot left over. But if it's a house you're living in and you planning to sort of chip away at things and put in some elbow grease on the weekends and that type of thing, then that's okay, right? Because you're working, you might be saving a bit of money on the side to do these things.
How much would you recommend people should be expected to have on the side for when they move in?
It's
probably pretty hard to give a ballpark, but I don't know, like 50 grand extra.
What do you want to do? All right. I mean, you don't have to have any extra.
I guess you don't have to.
Depends how you live, right?
It's true.
And this is actually one thing that's,
I guess it depends on
how
how
much. Surprised me a little bit, getting a bit of an inside peek into people's finances, and there's been a few instances where I've seen some. There's probably a few people out there. You earn really good income. You live in life, and then you go, okay, well, great, you've got $200,000 a year of income going there, but where's your savings? What are you actually doing with all this cash? What about tomorrow? An old friend always used to go on about how future me will regret this. Like you think about your yourself here and now, and then think about your future self. What's future me? What's he thinking about this? Is he going to be mad at past me for spending all the money on whatever? And is he going to wish that maybe I'd just been a bit more diligent and saved a bit more, or so there's that kind of thing. But you couldn't put a number on it. It's very context specific.
Yeah, because some people want to come in and just start like dividing rooms and doing shit like that as well. I know I worked with guys who did that.
Yeah, it depends what you want to do, right?
I was like, just get it. Like, how much more is that? You're going to be spending tearing down walls, making extra rooms.
Yeah,
we need a flat in here.
People buy a house for different reasons, right? If you want to make money out of it, then you're going to do it up and flip it. Like that's completely different to just buying a house to live in.
Of course.
So. Yeah, I mean, if you just want a nice place to live, like townhouses, Kiwis, I think, are slowly kind of adjusting to the idea of townhouses, and
the Kiwi dream house is almost kind of out of the
equation. The dreams, kind of like not in Auckland anyway. Like you go out of Auckland and you can still find that, but I think if you're going to live in the big city, I mean, Auckland's not even a big city, but you're going to live in the city, then you need to be realistic about it. And
we're sacrificing it for other should I say other conveniences? I mean, but comparatively to the rest of the country, yes, you are sacrificing a bit for conveniences.
Yeah, and it's like the whole balance, right? You go, okay, well, I can spend a bit more and live in this suburb, which is 5 minutes from work, and it's got all the local amenities, or I can, buy another 20 minutes out of town and save myself a couple $100,000 maybe, and have a bigger house, but I just have to drive further to work. It's kind of that kind of...
Yeah.
Which I think, since COVID, because a lot more people are working online and have remote days and all that kind of stuff, actually it's probably encouraging people to move out further from the city centre.
I definitely reckon that's been a huge factor, amongst other things, but that's been a massive driving factor of why the city has been pretty dead. I've talked shit about it on this podcast before.
Yeah. I mean, the CBD's had a real hard time, right?
Yeah, it's been rough as anything since COVID happened. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It used to be the place everyone would be, very busy. Now it's just like no one wants to go there unless you have to.
No, I mean, I can't think of the last time I went into the CBD. It was probably like a Christmas party, like last year, like we're talking about 4 months ago.
But I think that's another driving factor. I mean, also having crime and ram raids doesn't help, but No.
So, yeah, but I think it comes down to what do you look for? What's important? Like, what's important to you? Do you want a garage? Like, have you got cars? Because that's another point of contention, right? With these townhouses and stuff, some of them just don't have enough parking. And you're looking at it going, hey, we've got, I've got my work car, and then I've got my weekend car, and then they've got the wife's car. And it's like, where are we going to park? It just doesn't work because a lot of these townhouses are probably being consented with one car park.
One car park, maybe two if you're...
And then you're like, well, we're going to park them on the street. And then you look on the street, and everyone else is parking on the street. And there's, a good example of that actually is down in Hamilton, near the university there. If you've been to Waikato University, the streets around Old Farm Road and Hillcrest and stuff there. Actually near where my grandparents live. But they built a whole bunch of townhouses, right? And of course, what happens? All these students moved into the townhouses, and you're talking about, maybe a 4-bedroom house and 4 students with 4 cars, And next thing you know, there's just cars just parked on the berm, parked, across people's driveways, all that kind of stuff. And it's turned into a bit of a problem because they didn't think about it when
Didn't
they
design it. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
the purpose.
and the Kiwi way, it's just cars, right?
Yeah.
The public. We don't have the critical mass of population really to make public transport work that well.
No.
So yeah, so that's a bit of a side.
I love how you try to like just get off
from mortgages, you know.
No, that's cool, bro. Oh, get into that if you want. I think like another thing I want to also ask about, I guess, with like loans and going for even the first property or whatever it may be, people are more expert. What's a misconception you feel people have come to you with about, well, with what you do? Like, are they like, I've got some money saved up.
I'll tell you one that I've seen and experienced quite a lot. It's probably not exactly what you're thinking, but people that already have their first home, maybe they're a little bit older, maybe they've got family, or they're looking for the next home, and the question that they often ask is, hey, would really like to keep the first one as a rental and buy another one, and that would be our preferred situation. And a lot of the time, like, the numbers just do not work.
I feel like that's pretty classic New Zealand.
There's kind of like carryover from when houses were a lot cheaper and things were a lot more affordable to think that you can just afford to do that by default. And I think part of it is the fact that these people are probably a little bit further on in their careers, earning a bit better, kind of starting to feel like they're making some progress. I think as much as kind of has been done to deter people from trying to, do the whole sort of mum dad investor thing and have a rental property, like, everyone still sees that, I think, or a lot of people still see that as a bit of an ideal, have the investment property for retirement, but yeah, like I've seen a number of cases recently where it just does not work. And part of it is to do with the fact that I think when you're shopping for that next house, you're expecting it to be bigger and better,
sure,
and more expensive. Sort of comes along with that, and then the other part of it is just around the fact that a house that you buy as a home doesn't necessarily make a good investment property.
So for people's investment property, what would it just be to look for, like an apartment, flats, small things, rather go like downsize your expectations?
Yeah, so the way I think a lot of people think of it is that if you buy in a big centre, you get more exposure to capital gains. And if you buy out in the regions, maybe a smaller town or something, you buy a cheaper property, but the rental is still sort of up there, so you get more of what they call a yielding property, or cash flow property. So there's kind of that kind of dynamic, and so basically, a capital gain investment, and I realise it's obviously a bit of a contentious kind of topic around taxation on that and whatever, but a capital gain, typically someone would buy the property, they'd rent it out, it might just break even, or maybe it's making a little bit of a loss, in terms of how much the mortgage costs and the cost of property ownership is versus how much rent is coming in. But they're holding on to it because they know that over time, property has a pretty good track record of doubling every 7 to 10 years, which is something I would like to talk about, actually, because I think
I feel like we're at the end of that, aren't we?
Yeah, well, no. So this is where, like, from a
what's your insights on
this? So from a mindset point of view, and this is where crypto and Bitcoin and stuff has actually been, I think, incredibly invaluable at teaching people economics, myself included. Right, I got interested in crypto and Bitcoin and stuff, and I educated myself the way that any millennial does, via YouTube and the internet and stuff. I didn't learn this stuff at school, didn't go to uni for this, but there's so much information on the internet these days. Heck, you can go and get access to like Harvard courses for free, like, it's nuts. Anyway, so the mindset difference, or the paradigm shift, I suppose, if you want to get all fancy and jargony with it, is that if you think about the value, you think about inflation, right? So we have a certain amount of money, New Zealand dollars, floating around in various places that you or I spend, whether that's, getting paid every month, or, buying a house, or buying a car, or put in a term deposit, whatever it is, right? That money's there, but the amount of it's not fixed. And that's loosely the job of the Reserve Bank and the government kind of to help control that. So people talk about things doubling in price, and housing is a good example of that, right? Well, the way I like to think of it now is that the relative value, i.e. the importance of having a house, has actually kind of probably stayed about the same, right? You think it's important. I think it's important. Every man and his dog wants to own a house because of what that represents. It's a roof over your head. It's shelter. It's something to be proud of.
It's independence.
It's a sense of independence. It's a sense of belonging. It's somewhere for your family to be. There's all these factors that go into making a house important. So if the relative value from that point of view hasn't changed, what else has changed? Well, we've had a heck of a lot of inflation, so there's a lot more money ticking around. People are able to spend more because of credit policy of the Reserve Bank and of banks to, you can borrow more. So, when you're looking at going, well, house prices doubling every 7 to 10 years, it's more like actually the monetary supply is doubling every, I don't know if I haven't actually looked at the numbers, but it's increasing, right? Which means that people have more money, which means they can spend more, and the relative value of a house is still a house.
Hold on, but do people have more money now, though? You'd say, right, in 2024, we're talking.
Compared to when?
10 years ago. 2014. Do you like?
How do you measure that?
Okay, well, you're talking.
If you're talking about average wages, yes, there's more, but so there's an interesting balance between wages and asset prices, right? Mm-hmm. And it's quite relevant at the moment because they're looking at bringing in something called debt to income ratios, which basically they want to control how much debt you're allowed to have versus how much income you've got. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the price of a house, let's say the average house in Auckland's $1 million, and the average salary is, I'm just picking numbers out of the air here, I don't know if this is accurate or not, $70,000. It's probably not even that high, I don't know. You look at that and go, okay, well...
Used to be 50, I think it's like 60 or something these days.
Whatever it is, right? Like there's... That ratio is quite a bit different to what it used to be. You go back to our parents' day and whatever, and maybe the average house price was $200,000 and they were earning $40,000. I don't know. So, it's kind of, they're able to, and that's only sort of maybe 4 or 5 times what they were earning every year. Whereas now, you've got to earn for, I don't know, 10 plus years to reach the same value of the asset. So the asset prices have increased faster than the wages have increased, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I haven't explained that particularly well, but you kind of get the
I understand what you're saying. Asset prices, the whole point is asset prices have gone up while wages have remained the same.
Yeah. And where I'm at kind of at the moment, and I think you kind of see this, like the New Zealand versus Australia, if we're getting sort of more economic on it, the New Zealand versus Australia picture at the moment is Australia's kind of doing a lot better than we are. And you kind of see it with sort of the brain drain 2.0, everyone hiking over the ditch type thing, like my little brother. The Australia has some real strength in its economy, which, from what I understand, is driven largely by its natural resources. The mining. They're pulling stuff out of the ground there, and that's worth a lot of money, and they're hooking it off and selling it to the world. Whereas New Zealand, in terms of our economy, what do we produce? We have dairy,
agriculture, horticulture.
Yeah, exactly right. Wine, right. So wine's probably doing all right.
Are you talking about exports, or are you talking about like tourism?
Yeah, well? just anything, right? Anything tourism. You can sell, like whether it's sold locally or internationally, like doesn't matter too much as long as it's being sold, right? So like tourism's done pretty badly, mm-hmm. right, over the last few years. Obviously, COVID, basically destroyed that, and even since then, there's been some real, I guess, reluctance for people to come back. You hear about things like on the radio yesterday, I heard that the forecast number of cruise ships coming in is going to be a lot less now. And you're looking at things like what happened if you're following this LGP, the whole ordeal with the dolphins and
the dolphins are
basically the dolphins kind of like, well, apparently there's one dolphin there, and then they stopped racing because they were like concerned about. And the end result was that the event organisers were like, well, we don't really want to come back here now because this is just a hassle, and you've messed up our race schedule, and it's all this kind of hullabaloo.
Right.
It's like we kind of need to make it more attractive to people to come here, right? From a tourism point of view, that's just one. So tourism, things like lamb price. How many thousand sheep do we have? I don't even know.
I think it's 27 million.
There we go. How many million sheep?
If I remember the pub quiz correctly, it's 27 million.
Yeah, and lamb is obviously a pretty big. We export a lot of that, right? Well, now Australia's exporting cheap lamb, and the lamb prices dropped, and so that's affected the value of our exports, right? So we're getting less money. So there's kind of that kind of dynamic, and then you boil it down and go, well, what is actually strength? What's our strength? Like, what are we good at, and what do we make the most money from? And it feels like we've kind of been pushed back and on the back foot as a country.
Isn't our economy up there with like some of like the worst performing?
It's been pretty bad. I'm not. You probably picked up. I'm not a guy for specific details.
It's in a list though. Like I've seen it.
Yeah,
I can't remember the ranking.
I did. I think I did see something a while back. I think I know what you're referring to. It's been pretty bad, right? And then so I think it's hard, right? Because you got people working in Auckland and New Zealand and not earning as much relative to the price of a house as they used to. And so it's getting harder. And then at the same time, you've got all this immigration coming in and people coming in from overseas, and they go, well, maybe I used to live in China or India or the Philippines or somewhere, and the living conditions there weren't that great. And I could only afford a tiny little box apartment at the top of a 26-story skyscraper that looks directly out the window into smog. But I've got $1 million in the bank, and I can get into New Zealand now. Of course, I'm happy to pay above market rate for a beautiful 3-bedroom New Zealand house on its own section with garden and grass, and it's 20 minutes drive to the beach. Like it's the international context of New Zealand, which is why I don't think property prices are going to ever in the near future, like not in our lifetimes. I don't think we'll ever get to the point where they drop or plummet. This might be my sort of
Wasn't it last year? It was the first time ever
I don't know
that they dropped slightly.
Not ever, no.
Not ever.
But first time for a long time. Yeah.
Maybe in my lifetime. I don't know. But that's pretty crazy to think that. But wasn't it from like something crazy?
Maybe since 2008 or something like that. Because
right.
The GFC was pretty crap.
Yeah, but then also like the rate, like the prices increasing from 2008. Like I saw a graph of that. That's pretty hard. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and again, it's there's more money in the economy. There's more people here. There's more. You've had how many more hundreds of thousands of people immigrate.
Yeah, of course.
And New Zealand, we're all just immigrants, right? Mm-hmm. It's so I think there's that dynamic at play, and as the world arguably becomes more connected and people find it easier to travel and things, then like the demand for New Zealand property is going to continue to be up there.
Well, Auckland used to be one of the top 10 cities to live in the world. I don't know what that is now.
It used to be number 4, right? Remember that song, like, we're 4?
Yeah, it used to be up there.
Yeah.
Definitely not now.
I don't think we're quite at that level anymore.
I would say different reason. One thing I heard that was quite interesting through a couple of different Chinese people, I think Indians do this as well, is it's like a company, and they'll say like, come to New Zealand, we can give you work, give you somewhere to be, and it's just all BS. It's all fucking bullshit. Because what happens is like there's like you bring them over, and there's like you kind of put up this image of where you're going to be and what your work is, and send money back home to your family and your kids. And that's a real problem.
It's an interesting one, right? Because it's not just those nationalities that have done it.
I think it happened. Well, I hear more from Chinese.
If you go back in time, right? My opa, he's like I said before, I'm half Dutch, and so his story is he came from the Netherlands after World War II. Europe's ripped to shreds from the war, and he was like 17, 18, something like that. Jumped on a boat
when he came here.
Yeah,
far out.
Ballsy move, eh?
That is ballsy.
And
he obviously knew English, right?
Like the even more like astonishing part of it, he convinced my oma. They weren't even married. He convinced my oma to do the same thing and like come down here and start a new life together.
Wow!
Like they left their families, everything just.
I guess just living
and it was
through
like on
the
a
worst.
boat,
It's like how bad could it be?
It wasn't like a plane. It wasn't like a
I was like a 6 month.
It wasn't like a 24-hour plane trip. And then if it sucks, well, it's okay. Give it 3 months. We'll give it a shot, and then we'll jump on the plane and go back. It was like basically a one-way ticket. Anyway, so but when he came here, and he was a builder, draftsperson, come builder. So at the time, and he had the same sort of thing. Like they promised him all the stuff, and then he got here, and after a while they figured out that there's like just some dodgy stuff going on where like he was supposed to be getting more than he was actually promised, and there was like so I guess my point is that like it's not just the Indians, the Chinese or whatever, like it's been going on for forever, I think, with New Zealand. And I think I think back to I think it was high school, there's people coming out from England and things like that. Like they got sold the dream, Come to New Zealand, it's beautiful, it's great. And they get here and they kind of see the hard reality is that it's a little bit different from what was on the poster.
Less opportunity. Beaches and barbecues by on the beach.
Yeah. So, but hey, we're here and we're kicking, and
we're not at war.
We're not. Well, that's exciting. That's a big bonus.
That's
right?
a big bonus.
We're
not at war.
We're down the other end of the Pacific Ocean, and
we haven't got too much to offer the rest of the world either. I don't think we don't have enough resources.
We don't have a lot of military power.
We also don't have that,
which is good and bad, right?
Yeah. It's not much of a threat. So
we're not much of a threat, but it also means we kind of have to kiss ass to whoever does have the power, because.
Oh yeah, big time.
Hey, Australia, please don't smite us. We'll do whatever you say.
Exactly. One thing I also want to talk about at the moment, because I do feel like that's not just New Zealand, but just general. People are looking now to expand how they deal with investments to their finance, side hustles. It's very popular. I mean, who doesn't have a side hustle now? Pretty much everybody has got one. What would you say in regards to investment? You're a keen investor. Reasonably. Well, you were last time, I suppose,
Yeah.
My question is, what would you say is, in the times that we're in now, because it's tough, apart from the military-industrial complex, what's a good place to invest?
Mate, not financial advice.
No, it's not financial advice. But you could...
I don't have any investment qualification.
Doesn't need to be investment qualification. Let's just see recent trends of things that you think are an opportunity. It's not terrible.
There's guys out there at the moment who would tell you to buy gold, precious metals.
That's been going for like hundreds of years, but
yeah.
I guess it's stable.
But I mean, that's the thing, and it comes back to that. One of the core things with Bitcoin and it's fixed supply. They can't mine gold any faster. There's an inflation rate that's not controlled by a human being, essentially. And that's the same thing with Bitcoin, right? When it was created, it was set in stone. The computer will only give you this much every block that's mined, and then every 4 years it's going to get chopped in half, which we just had the other day, right? I don't know if you're paying attention, but so the rate of inflation is slowed. So if you're looking at it from a supply and demand point of view, now in times like these where you've got wars and you've got economic downturns and you've got inflation, all this kind of stuff, people generally flee to safety. Like, okay, I need a safe investment. And that's where, gold and precious metals and things come in, because they go, well, it's a block of gold. I can stick it in the safe, or I can, where it is, and it's not going to disappear. No one's going to inflate the value of it away. It's not like, there's a central bank who's just going to COVID, we need some more money. Here we go. Let's just print another however many $1 billion, like the US government or whatever is doing. So there's a flight to safety. So that's probably, I think, where, again, like not financial advice, but that's where I think a lot of
it's old school
seasoned investors would be looking at the moment. And then of course there's the modern version of that, which is Bitcoin, which kind of gets termed digital gold, which is somewhat true. There's some characteristics of it that are beneficial. The trouble generally though is that it's just a whole lot more volatile.
Well, the drops are massive,
up and down and up and
you gotta.
And part of that really is, I think, it's just because there are people out there who probably do have the ability to manipulate it, from the sense of they're a whale, they've got however many $1 million and they're just going to pump it up or drop it down or whatever, or a news article comes out and it's illegal again.
What was the government trying to put Bitcoin in their currency? Like that was going to be their national currency.
I think the Swiss government's looking at it. Is their currency?
Yeah, like that's their currency. Like a South American country or something. I feel like it's South American country who was like, we're going to do crypto.
So, I think Argentina was looking at it. The famous one is, I forget the name of it, man. It's not I forget the name of the country, but there is a country, and it's the prime minister or the president or whatever he is. He's quite like, he's on Twitter, X, and he's like posting about it. And he's like, we bought Bitcoin, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's really going to bug me now. But yeah, so if you want to sort of get into the military-industrial complex, like there's reasons why
it's a great investment.
No, I'm not saying you should go there, but there's reasons why, like the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. Mm-hmm. Still technically is, I suppose. Has been able to get to that status, but that's been at the cost of a lot of other smaller countries,
Sure.
that have suffered because, the Americans are big and they can do what they want.
Yeah, let's throw their weight around. That's true.
They did. But yeah, like from an investment, so that'd probably be my pick if you... the thing that, and this is one of the reasons why I love property, is that, like, if you're going to look at, and compare asset classes and go, okay, should I buy crypto? Should I buy property? Should I buy gold? Should I buy stocks, whatever? When you buy a stock, a lot of people will say, just go and buy an ETF, an exchange traded fund, which is like a melting pot of all the top performers on the fund, and you buy that, and it kind of, you get an average of all of the individual companies and how they're performing. And so if that, that's fine, right? That's a very easy way to invest. One unit's one unit, and they're the same as the other. When you buy, say crypto, it's the same thing, right? It's the concept of fungibility. But if I've got a $5 note, that $5 note is the same as the next $5 note. It's got the same value as every other $5 note. When it comes to property, it's not so the same, right?
No.
Sure, you can get properties that are very comparable. You might have a block of 5 townhouses and they're all very similar. But even inside that, there's variability. So you go, this is an end unit. It's got, it's north facing, and you've got an extra car park. So that's got more value. And this is the middle unit. It's got less value because, it faces south, and, you've got neighbors on both sides, which is less desirable. So within property, there's a lot of this kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, what's the value of that? Like, you can't just say one house is worth one house. You can't say that your 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert is the same as the other 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert. They might be similar within reason, but there's things that you can do to that house to make it better, right? And to make it value more. So, and that's kind of, I think, where, if you look at, people who have done really well on property, they understand that. And that's when you look at like property traders or flippers, they understand that really well.
Vanilla Ice.
Huh?
Vanilla Ice.
With their lies?
No, Vanilla Ice, you know?
Vanilla Ice, yeah.
He's amazing at it.
Yeah.
That's how he made all his money.
Yeah, exactly, right. So
flipping houses and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so you recognise, okay, well, if this was in good condition, it would be worth this much. But it's not been kept in good condition, and I know how I can bring it up to that condition without it costing me that much.
But often there will be like because of the land, right? Isn't there like a stable rate because of what the land is? Like some bloody shed on like, I don't know how much land I don't know. What's an average like property, Auckland house property size?
Oh, I mean,
and you have like
600 square meters, maybe.
Right,
yeah,
and you just have like
maybe.
a piece of crap shed or like I don't know something, but that land will be worth something ridiculous.
The land is always worth something, right? Yeah, absolutely. So you've got
because that's always actually I have no idea. Is that always stable?
Depends on the type of land.
Okay.
Right, so most of the time, yes.
Okay, if there's no problems with it.
There's a saying with land. It's the same as gold. Like, they're not making any more of it. You can't just make more land unless you're Dutch and you reclaim half the countryside. But that's
or Dubai.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's hard to make more land, costly to make more land, right? So again, that sort of. It's a limited supply. So, like when you look at your council rates, right, your rating value, or your CV as it's often called, there's two parts to it. There's the land value, and then there's the improvements value. And the land value is generally, a lot of the time, at least 50% of the value. Sometimes higher, depending on what's built on it. So you might have a piece of land, with a piece of crap old shed on it. It's not worth much, and the majority of the value will be in the land. Or you could have some land and have a 20-story skyscraper on it that's worth $20 million or more, and you go, okay, well, maybe more of the value is in the building.
Yeah, but then because I would assume that land just stays pretty stable, unless
from a value point of view.
From a value point of view. Unless there's something seriously wrong with it.
Yeah, generally it goes up, right? Same with the property value. And again, like
there's wouldn't be the same, right? It wouldn't go up exactly the same as the property. Surely no, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. I thought that the land would just like stay as is, and then what
it
do
depends
on top is the value of the property.
if you've got a bare section, let's say your section's worth $500K, and then you build a house on it that's also worth $500K, then the property is going to be worth $1 million, maybe more. Because again, it's like the old saying, the sum of the parts is greater than the.
But if you then take off that house,
then
it's back to what it was.
Yeah, it's back to what it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, that's kind of what I'm more getting.
But it's back to what it was. But again, like the value of that will change over time as the market changes,
depending on the area as well, and how
and the desirability, and that's like I say, like you get into the if you read a few real estate listings and stuff, you'll see stuff like double grammar zone,
of course, school zones,
school zones,
transport,
exactly, all that kind of stuff. And that's, like I said, that's part of the reason I love property, because there's so much variability in it, and there's so much fungibility in it, like this house compared to that house. I just find it so interesting, like it just maybe it's just the kind of person I am, but I love kind of looking at the differences in it and go, well, this is worth more, this is worth less, like this is nice, this isn't, and then sort of going beyond that, you see what different people value in a property is different. So we talked about townhouses and apartments probably by extension on that, and you go, well, how valuable is a backyard?
Yeah.
And you go, well, I'm an avid gardener, so I really want a backyard, and I really want a big area where I can plant my garden and do my gardening every day and blah, 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 this kind of stuff. Whereas the next person might be like, actually, I don't want a backyard. I hate gardening. I actually don't even want lawn. I just want somewhere I can come home, I can sleep, cook, and then go out, because I'm a professional, I've got a working life, don't have time to maintain the yard, and that's all I want. And, I think increasingly people are shifting more into that camp, and arguably it's more of like an inner city lifestyle that people like with that. And so you point, well, some people might actually, so for example, had a first home buyer, bought a townhouse sort of central West Auckland, and like she was single, she worked a lot. I think she had a cat. She didn't want a lawn.
Yeah, perfect.
Like, you know,
of course, it's purpose. It's purpose.
Yeah,
but everyone's different. Of course. We do have our kiwi dream though. You know that is.
Yeah,
that will
and you
always be
know,
there.
a lot of people do. Yeah, still have the dream, and they want the backyard, and they want the
Two-story
swimming
house.
pool, and they want the
two-car garage and all
yeah,
that. All
yeah,
that stuff.
and you know, you can have that if you've got enough money. Or you earn enough,
like
right?
anything.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you another thing about like material, like build, like with there's always when I used to do a bit of trade, which is like the timber industry a little bit, and like, different timber housing to like how different houses are built. Saw some good ones, saw some bad ones. What's like, I don't know, is the best material a house is made out of? But like like timber is such a funny one because so many crappy houses with timber, but there's also some great ones.
Yeah.
So like I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
from a mortgage broker point of view.
That's a great question, right? And I think the first thing that comes to mind is the whole sort of leaky home thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back to
90s, right?
roughly between like 95 and 2008, I think is roughly. But there's the leaky home era, and if you actually research it, there's a lot of different variables that go into it. One was the quality of the timber. So you might just think a piece of 4x2 is a piece of 4x2. Not true. Like if you look at the timber closely and you look at like
it's like 4 point,
the different sizes for a start. Yeah. But a higher quality piece of 4x2 might have tighter rings, i.e. the lines are closer together, and the trees, maybe it's grown slower, it's grown over a longer period of time, it's been harvested later in its life, and so it's more mature versus a piece of timber that's been cut down relatively young, it's not as dense, and it doesn't last as well. So there's that kind of nuance. The big one was like the plaster cladding, right? On the plaster disaster, and basically whoever, I don't know, I was like 6 or 7. This kind of stuff was going on, right? So, but whoever at the time decided it was a great idea to make to put plaster cladding on the side of a house and put it all in one piece. It's kind of like the look. It's really nice, this plaster. And so the problem with it, of course, is that eventually it cracks, and then the water gets in, and that just rots away, right? And this is kind of back in the days before they did so much treatment on the timber, and the building code kind of was a bit more loose. And so yeah, like when I'm talking with, say, a first home buyer, like I generally just say, I'm like, just stay away from anything plaster, because the trouble now is that even if you look at it and go, oh, it's okay, and there's a few things, towards, nowadays, like a lot of cladding is put on over a cavity. So you basically have your 4x2 and you have a little batten, and then you have the cladding, so there's space. So if water gets in, it can drip down and breathe, and the water can get out again, right? Whereas back in the days, just stick it straight on.
Yeah, stick it straight on.
So there's stuff like that, but even so, like even if you find a good quality plaster house and it's been looked after, and it's got a cavity and all that kind of stuff, like there's still the stigma, and people get sucked into it and they go, oh, this is a really nice house. Oh, it looks quite cheap too. Oh, actually, I think we can afford that one, and they get drawn to it because generally it actually looks a little bit nicer than everything else they've been looking at in their price bracket. The trouble is that from a maintenance point of view, is the plaster going to crack? Is it going to be leaky? Is it going to rot out? Whatever. But also, like, can you get finance on it? And some banks are pickier on it than others.
Sure. That's a huge payout if it's like a lot of damage.
But yeah, like at the end of the day, like the way a mortgage works, right, is the bank has a registered interest in the house. So if you stop paying the mortgage and they want to get their money back, then they can sell the house and they have the first right to any of the money that comes out of it. And generally, you've heard the term LVR, or loan to value ratio.
Nope.
So loan to value, coming back to the deposit side of things, so you got to have 20%. So that would be an 80% LVR. So 80% of the value of the house is your loan. Gotcha. 80% loan to 100% value, right? So yeah, so they won't let you borrow 100%. especially for something like that.
Of course not.
Because if it all proverbially hits the fan, and they have to sell the house to get their money back, are they going to have enough to cover it? And is the house still going to be worth enough to cover the loan that you took out? So that's kind of the leaky home kind of stuff. But I think brick and tile is fairly safe. Bricks are great, low maintenance.
Brick's good if you got, I think, because it's a brick house and any HRV.
If you have an HRV,
yeah. Well, I just noticed living in a brick house that there's a lot of the I don't know what you'd call it, temperature regulation of the property or inside the house. There's a lot of problems there, especially with mold and condensation. And obviously it comes down to double glazing. I mean, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, so the HRV is something it's a positive pressure ventilation system, right? So basically in an older house, but
they're great. I rate them.
You get the problems with moisture build up and kind of stuff, which gives you mold and they're generally not that well insulated, and they've got lots of gaps in them because
it's old housing.
The joinery was old and whatever. But basically, what an HRV does is it takes the air in your ceiling space and it pushes it out through the house. So there's always a very slight positive pressure. Air in your house is always being pushed out, and it's always moving. So there's less chance for mold and things to build up because the air is always moving. And when it's moving, it takes the moisture out with it, and it results in a drier, healthier home.
Of course, that's what would be
As
great.
Probably,
have you seen on the subject of materials of houses and buildings? Have you seen in China that they call it tofu buildings?
No.
Have you seen that? Oh, I got to show you a video of that. It's literally because of the speed of how quickly buildings and infrastructure goes up there, which is incredibly fast.
It's nuts. Yeah.
No regulations, but but it's more the material that they've got. I forgot what it is, but they call it tofu. Like tofu building, because it's just you can just smack the wall and everything just comes out, the cheap plaster or I'll show you some videos of it later. But it's but that's it's crazy. But so much of the infrastructure, especially for the last 15, 20 years, is just most of it's there.
Yeah, and another one that is an interesting one, it's fibre cement. So finishing off on the good ones, right? So brick and tile. There's the old saying brick and tile makes you smile. It's solid. Sure, you might get a cracked tile or something, but it's really easy to replace one or two tiles. Long run iron is another really good solid roofing material. It's just solid. It'll eventually rust, but you're probably talking about 20 years type thing.
But something I find interesting is also the demonization of asbestos roofing.
Yeah,
but they can be really good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So interesting. I was having this combo with we're doing a bit of renovation on our house at the moment, and I was chatting with the builder the other day, and we were talking about asbestos, right? And he was saying, because he's old school, he's pushing 60 type thing, so he's been around the block a few times, and he was saying, a lot of the old asbestos products, in terms of the quality, of it didn't rot, it lasted really well. It's actually really good, But there's the whole thing around the safety of it, and
if the roof was
if you're listening to this and you don't know asbestos, particularly the friable stuff, the stuff that's able to get powdered up and into your lungs, it causes cancer, it causes mesothelioma, it basically kills you.
Yeah.
And so these days nothing's allowed to have asbestos in it, but there's still a lot of houses out there with it on it. And from a roofing material point of view, the one that often comes up is the dechromastic tiles.
Yes,
it's tin tiles, and they've got this coating on them.
I know that from.
And again, generally it doesn't cause a problem, right? I was looking at a house for someone yesterday, and it's dechromastic tiles on the roof. Generally not a problem as long as you're not going to smash the tiles up,
Yeah.
And when it's up high like that and not likely to get... So that's... Whereas, if it's somewhere else, if it's in a... let's say, there's the classical speckled ceilings, what do they call them? Popcorn ceilings.
What's that? Popcorn?
It's this... they used to spray this, textured stuff on the ceilings.
Okay.
And then, you might, an object might touch those, and then it would, fall down. It's all this powdery cut stuff. And then you inhale that, and then...
No, cancer.
Bye-bye lungs, Well, I don't know if it's quite that black and white. But yeah, there's a big sort of concern. Health and safety is pretty up there these days. So yeah, and then like weatherboards, like good old timber weatherboards, great. The theme really is that if it's in small pieces and you can replace a small amount of it easily, it's generally a lot better than something that's got a big singular piece.
A long singular piece.
Yeah,
but
so
that's most weatherboard, isn't it? Like most houses I've seen with weatherboards, it's long pieces.
Yeah, it's long pieces, as long as it's not all one piece. So
okay.
there's the term monolithic, mono, one, lithic, kind of, together, whatever. So it's, plaster monolithic, that's no bad, don't go there, So, but weatherboards are good. The term that's slightly controversial is like fibre cement. It's like the James Hardy fibre cement stuff. So you can get fibre cement weatherboards. Plaster, all the time is fibre cement. So there's kind of a lot of confusion around it. So like even, like I had a guy, he had a house, it was weatherboard, it was fine. It was fibre cement weatherboard, which, I mean, brand new houses, a lot of them will have fibre cement weatherboards on them these days. Like, there's no problems with them, really. But still, there's a stigma around fibre cement. So I've had applications nearly declined because the house, on the title, it says that the house is constructed using fibre cement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't really know much about that.
Yeah.
Oh, I've learned so much.
There you go. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So, but I mean, like in general, like these days, every sort of cladding, it's put on a cavity. It's up to date. The current building code's pretty high up there. Like the one that's really interesting that just came in last year was around the insulation standards.
Yeah. That was huge.
It's nuts. Like you have to have like something like this much insulation in your ceiling now. It's crazy. Like
that's a lot of insulation.
It's a massive amount of insulation. Yeah.
I mean, from going from none to now.
And like you look at all the different ingredients that go into why is it so expensive to build a house in Auckland? Like that's another reason. The whole sort of healthy home standard.
Yeah,
like,
healthy home.
Why is it so expensive to own a house and to why has my rent gone up? Because now the landlord has to put a heat pump in and they have to insulate and they have to all these extra things that just add to the cost of.
Just the price of shoddy building for so many years. Too many shortcuts in the past.
Yep.
I reckon there's like a hangover of that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a hangover from that. So anyway, that's I mean, my favourites would be like weatherboards, weatherboards, bricks, and tile.
Cool.
That's probably that's what I'd go to.
That's where you go to. All right, I think we're nearing the end. And I like to do a thing like quickfire questions. Mm-hmm. They sort of are quickfires, but we'll see how we go. First things first. What is the best property scam you've seen?
Best property scam?
Yeah.
Ooh. The scam where someone properly got done?
Yeah.
I was reading about one the other day, actually. And again, it just comes down to people being scummy, right? I don't know, this isn't necessarily the best one, but basically this guy faked the LIM report. If you know what LIM report is, it stands for Land Information Management Report. And basically it's got all of the information about the property, if there's been any issues, flooding, if you have a fire on your property, generally it goes on there, that type of thing, So it's got all the information, a lot of the history of the property on it. And this guy basically selling this house, and it had problems with flooding, and basically modified the LIM report to take that away, just so he could sell the house.
So he took away that.
And he got done. He got done. I don't know how much he got fined, but the sad part as well was that the person who bought the house also got. I mean, they can't sort of
they can't get
undo the sale type thing. So that's one example. Another one is a guy who. So the valuation system is really interesting, right? So when you get a registered valuation for and sometimes the bank needs it to verify that, hey, this house is what you're paying for it, it's worth. And there's generally quite a tight system in the way you have to do it. But some of the non-bank lenders don't use the same system. And so this is last year, 2 years ago. This guy was basically faking valuations.
Oh my gosh! Did he get away? How long did he get away with it for? You can make.
No, I'm pretty sure it got done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't
You
last
only hear
long.
about the ones that get done, of course.
Yeah. Because if you can get away with that for a while, it's a lot of money. Holy crap, it's a lot of money.
I don't know how many times he did it, but yeah, it's like that's the type of stuff where you're like, man, how do you sleep at night? You know?
Yeah.
Like scams. I mean,
Those are more for
I
the
have my
mortgages,
reservations about because the trouble in New Zealand, in particular, with like tall poppy syndrome and stuff. Like, if there's people who are doing it successfully, they tend to get disliked quite a lot.
Of course.
And so there's some, I'm not going to name names, but there's some very successful people out there who have done very well, but you hear a story or two and you're like, is that just hearsay or is it kind of... So, yeah. I think the best advice, I don't even remember where I heard this from, but like, it's like, if you're going to get rich quietly.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, another one is... it was a real good one. I mean, I have another question, but it was about Kiwi Saver with banks or to do with an independent investment. Or can you not say?
Not financial advice. I'm not a KiwiSaver advisor, but
because I've heard
a general
I've heard
comment, and this kind of extends to things like insurance and stuff as well, is that banks will look for any excuse to sell you something.
Sure.
Obviously, KiwiSaver providers make money when they manage your KiwiSaver fund. So probably as a general comment, like you'll probably be okay, but there's probably a managed fund out there, an independent provider that would do a better job. Probably. But again, like you can go on, you can look at all the CanStar stuff, and you can look at all the, they publish their fund performance every year, so you can go look at that and make your own informed decision. But in general, like for me personally, I don't have my KiwiSaver with a bank.
Sure.
Yeah.
What is the worst loan to take? Do you reckon? Like, I mean, there's so many different types, right? From all the different types of personal loans. Obviously, there's a lot of different types of property ones, investment ones. But now you're kind of in the thick of it. You're in the thick of it.
So
you deal with people's finances, and you're like, ooh.
I think, the term loan shark is there for a reason, and there's people that will, payday loans and all that kind of stuff. I think the worst loan to take is, is one that you don't need.
Yeah, but right? if you had to name it, if I had to name it, you have to name a loan, a type of loan.
The one with the highest interest rate, like the one with the worst terms, like the one that requires a personal guarantee. Like, so you get secured and unsecured debt, right? Of
course.
So if you've got a car, like it'd be secured against the car. Get a house, like a mortgage is secured against the house. So generally unsecured debt, like you're basically giving a personal guarantee that you're going to repay the money, and generally it's a much higher interest rate. So in general, that's the worst type. And kind of see that, like, I was, there's, you've heard the term, put it on the house, right? So, we're going to go on a holiday. Let's just put it on the house.
Yeah. I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, it's harder. It's harder these days.
It's like old school.
It's harder these days, but like mortgage debt's cheap debt, right? Even now, even if you're paying 6.5%, 7%, it's still a lot cheaper than paying 20% on your credit card or 11, 12% on an asset to an asset lender. So in general, I'd say like the worst, like a personal loan is probably Well, and I think the part of the trouble with it as well is that it's the type of debt that people get just because they want something, not because they really need it.
Yeah, well, it's just impulse buying. that's also a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of people do that. Yeah. Cool. All right, sweet, bro. I think that's kind of all I've got, actually. You got any things to shout out? But I mean, you just work. On the socials, on TikTok, bro. Doing those videos.
Not yet. Watch this space though. So I actually had a
mortgage broker
influencer.
Meeting, here we come.
Had a meeting with a guy this morning about doing some more, visual reelsy type stuff. Which it's interesting. He was showing me. This is what he does. So he's messing around with it. He created a brand new Instagram account a week ago. He's already got 1,600 followers.
What did he do?
like just from this. It's the content and the way that he kind of presents it. It's
Wow.
like all he's done, he's posted probably like a dozen reels type thing.
Damn, I gotta take some advice.
And
I posted like 200.
I was really impressed. I think part of it in this case helped because it was golf, like golfing.
Right.
You know, and people like to watch golf on TikTok and Instagram.
Suppose so.
Yeah. So watch this space. Within the next month or two, there should be some more of my face talking as opposed to just seeing a static image on my Instagram. Which would be good. And I think, you know, if you're a first home buyer out there or, you know, want to know more about mortgages, then heck, find me there. Give me a follow. Ben at Mortgage Supply. Ben Mortgage Supply Co.
Suppliers Co, right?
Yeah. But yeah, you know, like it's an exciting time, I think, for a lot of people. Like coming in now, you know, we're kind of getting past COVID, and eventually the interest rates will start to drop, and we'll kind of get out of this economic slump. And I think hopefully there's some much better times on the horizon.
Yeah, I think everyone's hoping for that. Hope so. Thanks, bro. Thanks for coming on. Thanks,
No
everyone,
worries.
for listening.
Thanks for having me.
All good, bro. Anytime. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll call it there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.